Hello and welcome to World Talks. My name is Sasha Fahrbach. Now, as NATO leaders meet in The Hague, sharp divisions emerge over defense spending, alliance unity, and the U.S.'s shifting role. Now, President Trump's surprise Israel-Iran ceasefire, coming on the heels of his unilateral bombing of Iranian nuclear sites, has intensified tensions in the Middle East and raised urgent questions about his approach to diplomacy. Coupled with his skepticism toward European partners and reluctance to back NATO's 5% GDP spending goal, the future of collective defense and multilateral cooperation hangs in the balance. With Ukraine's fate and NATO's global role at stake as well, tensions are running high. But to break all this down and all these complex issues, taking a closer look now, we're joined by Garvan Walshe, CEO, Article 7 Intelligence for Democrats. Good to see you again. Let's jump right into it. Looking at
it's good to see you. Good evening.
Good to see you. And looking at diplomacy now, this is going to be quite a heated summit. It was always going to be, but with Donald Trump's go-it-alone style, as we said, now with Iran also very much on his shoulders, how is that going to impact Donald Trump and the way he is dealt with and how he deals with other leaders at NATO?
Donald Trump is kind of go-it-alone squared. He's not just go-it-alone from allies, not only go-it-alone from enemies, he's also go-it-alone with previous versions of Donald Trump. This was the man who said, we need peace in Iran, we want negotiations. Then he saw the bombing was going well, so he joined the bombing. Now he said, that's enough. And even attacking one of America's closest allies, Israel, for retaliating against an Iranian violation of the ceasefire. Donald Trump is very unpredictable. The only thing that's certain is that he likes to be at the center of attention.
Mm-hmm. And I want to talk a little bit about marginalization here as well. At the same time, some European allies will definitely be perturbed, if we can put it that way, by Trump doing what he did. But at the same time, I think in the last few hours, we've heard very much praising words. For instance, from Mark Rutte himself, who just shared, I think on Truth Social there, Trump shared those words of encouragement, of telling Trump he did something that no one else dared to do. Friedrich Merz, Germany's chancellor, also praising Trump in that way. So how marginalized are the Europeans? Is this a tactic by the Europeans? How do you interpret all that as well in all this?
This is clearly a tactic by the Europeans. They want to tell Trump that he's important. They want to make him feel he's at the center of things. Because once you do that, it's amazingly easy to persuade him to do whatever it is that you want to do. This is really what he cares about. He wants to be in the middle of what's a kind of, reality TV show of the world. And I think almost all world leaders have now realized this is the way to get to Trump's heart and to make him say things that will then support your agenda. So Rutte here was saying, look, you, Trump, because what you've done, have made Europe pay. And making Europe pay has been what lots of American presidents have tried to do for some time. And Trump was only able to do it because he was able to essentially threaten Europe through the means of J.D. Vance, of actually abandoning them. So Europe said, okay, well, actually, we can't rely on the United States. We'd better start doing things ourselves. That achieved Trump's goal. Whether it achieved the goals of the United States is another matter.
Mm-hmm. As you said, encouraging, forcing them to pay. I mean, we've heard a lot about, especially Mark Rutte touting that he's brought everyone to the table, agreeing to 5%. But let's look at this a little bit further. We've had some serious doubts raised, especially by Pedro Sanchez of the Spanish government as well, saying he's not going to sign up to the 5%. There's an opt-out potentially. How realistic is this? Is this just some brinkmanship dealing here? I mean, this could offset other countries, Belgium jumping in, the Slovakians, the Hungarians. How serious is this as a problem at the summit?
I mean, it's the 5% target is itself a fudge because 1.5% is to be spent on non-defense activity. 5% is probably, however, too much for European defense spending, for Europe's need. I mean, it would create a European defense budget at least as big as, if not larger than that of the United States. I'm not sure that's what the United States really intended. I think it was a figure a bit plucked out of the air. But 3.5% is a reasonable figure. It would enable Europe to be able to protect its own borders, be able to deter Russia, as long as it's all deployed sensibly. And 1.5% on other activities, whether it's diplomacy, defense, cybersecurity, critical democratic infrastructure, all that's really, really important. And this allows that to happen. Now, if we look at Pedro Sanchez, The guy leads a government that has traditionally not spent much on defense. Whoever's been in power in Spain, he's also in coalition with a far-left party that is pacifist, arguably pro-Russian, and would be very reluctant to approve any budget that would increase defense spending. He seems to be allowed some kind of diplomatic out, and he's saying, well, we're particularly efficient and cheap in Spain, but beware, because other countries might be able to do that. Here in Greece, for example, they meet all those targets despite having low labor costs, and as a result have a very capable armed forces, particularly a particularly capable navy. Now they do that because they need to protect their security against what they think is their rivals in Turkey. Spain doesn't have such rivals. Nevertheless, this is clear that the Spanish government can't see how it will increase defense expenditure to 3.5% or even overall expenditure to 5%. Italy actually is under similar constraints. Italy's defense spending has also been quite low, though again, Italy have got a lot of bang for their buck. They have a lot of personnel under arms. They have several paramilitary forces like the Guardia di Finanza and the Carabinieri. They can also be used for military purposes. They have significant aviation and naval aviation, despite relatively low overall defense spending. And it is probably worth learning from countries like Italy about how they can spend their defense budgets to much greater effect than Northern European countries seem to be able to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure that this will be discussed at length, and I think that the idea, I think Trump has already hinted that he sees this as unfair if not everyone's pulling their weight, as he puts it. We'll see what comes out of that working group tomorrow. But also, of course, one of the main topics here will be about being ready, defending the alliance against the Russian threat. It also very much includes Ukraine. We were talking about membership some at the last few summits that seem to be kind of edging closer. At this point in time, we're not even sure if Zelensky will even meet President Trump. There's sort of indication that, yes, there will be a meeting on the sidelines somewhere. What do you think in terms of Trump's position at this point in time? The last meeting between Zelensky and Trump did not go over so well in the White House. So what do you think of Ukraine's role here at the summit?
The positive way of looking at these things is that since the terrible meeting at the White House, Trump has understood that Russia is much less reliable than he had hoped. He's got increasingly frustrated by Russia's intransigence over this war, because what Trump wants is the appearance of a deal. He wants to be the guy who has made peace, and he wants to bask in the attention of that. He isn't really thinking about the geopolitics. He doesn't even seem to be thinking about the personal relation with Donald Trump with Vladimir Putin that he used to have. So this means Zelensky's position is a little bit better than it was at the time of the Oval Office meeting. That's not to say it's extremely good. The United States has withdrawn a significant amount of aid in practice. Europeans have stepped up. Maybe this is what Trump wants, but it certainly made things tougher for Ukraine and made things more difficult for Ukraine's fight against Russia. So we might see a meeting on the sidelines. It's likely that Trump will acquiesce to Ukraine joining NATO, even Ukraine joining NATO as a condition of permanent peace. And there are other NATO members that would happily hide behind the American veto. There's obviously Hungary, perhaps Slovakia. We may be entering a slightly better phase than we used to be when it came to Ukrainian-American relations, but the going is still extremely tough, and many people among Trump's circle think this is not their problem. They think this is something that should really be up to the Europeans to sort out, and that's also behind their desire to see greater European defense spending. They don't see why a very rich continent that has advanced technology should not be able to defend itself. They're concerned about defense of the American homeland, and they're concerned about the Asian-Pacific theater, particularly Chinese expansionism. Mm-hmm. They really can't understand why Europe shouldn't take up the burden itself, and are going to be pretty tough in making sure that Europe does.
Yeah. And also on that note, I want to just share a soundbite by President Trump. I believe this is just before he boarded Air Force One, exactly about the situation, what he thinks of President Zelensky, Ukraine, and also Iran. Let's take a look.
Do you think you'll meet with Zelensky when you're there?
Yeah, probably. I'll see him. Yeah.
What would you say to him?
Say, how you doing? They're tough. He's in a tough situation. Should have never been there. I'd like to see a deal with Russia. As you know, Vladimir called me up. He said, "Can I help you with Iran?" I said, "No, I don't need help with Iran. I need help with you." And I hope we're going to be getting a deal done with Russia. It's a shame. 6,000 soldiers died last week. more, 6,500 soldiers died last week. Russia, Ukraine, a war that never would have happened if I was president.
Now, we have to dissect that Trumpian speak there, Garvan, but I think what I want to get your view on is exactly where he said very much about talking with Vladimir Putin. He says, I don't need help with Iran, I need help with you. How much is what happened in Iran now changing that dynamic? Has this impacted American policy, Trump policy towards Russia in any way? What do you make of what he just said there?
It seems that if he hasn't been able to close down the Israeli-Iranian conflict, then I think it won't have significant effects. I think they'll be able to go back to their usual approach to Russia. If that hadn't happened, it would have been quite difficult, with Israel bombing Iranian drone production facilities, with Russia trying to see what they can do to help their Iranian ally. If anything, it would have made any rapprochement with Russia more difficult. That doesn't seem to be happening now, so Trump has managed to contain that. And again, as we see, as usual, what he wants to be is keep everyone guessing. He wants to keep Zelensky guessing. He thinks that gives him strength and power. We'll see whether that's an accurate calculation or, in fact, causes other people to hedge against Trump because they know he's become so unreliable and he likes to exploit that unreliability. There are things that Ukraine still needs from the United States, there are things Europe still needs from the United States as well, but also there's certain things that the United States needs from Europe. It would have been much harder to conduct those operations against Iran without being able to fly aircraft from European air bases. Europe has a huge strategic value to the United States beyond just protecting European allies and European economies from external attack. It's also a platform that the US can use for its military operations. There are major bases there. The major American military hospitals are there. These are enormously important facilities that Trump may not realize Europe gives to the United States, but the American military do understand this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he said there's a strategic bond there that definitely, if he doesn't praise it, I mean, he still needs it, as you said. Just closing, I do want to just touch on, draw from your knowledge of cybersecurity and technology just really briefly. I mean, looking at this pledge, this 5%, as you said, it's actually divided into two parts, right? The 3.5% core defense and that 1.5% of everything else, greater security, et cetera, security at large. Part of that, I think, includes cybersecurity. So what can we expect from that? I mean, this is a big moment as well. I mean, how is that going to now, let's say, get a boost here out of this? Give us your take on that.
It's a way, probably a way to relabel many existing budgets that were previously not defense budgets. They were previously national defense budgets, national resilience budgets. Even when you're looking at critical democratic infrastructure, civil society budgets, we're now going to call these defense. The main increases will probably take place in the core defense budget. This is really an accounting exercise to somehow reach that 5% target that Trump had asked and give him a way to say, well done, you've reached my target. Obviously, Europe needs to think about cybersecurity. It needs to think also about beefing up its intelligence capabilities and beefing up its satellite capabilities, understanding its communications, reforming its communication infrastructure, because all these things are very much American dependent. But there are aspects of European intelligence that are very capable. The Dutch, for example, famously hacked the Russian troll farms, hacked their security cameras and relayed their footage around the world. The British are also very capable. There are many other Europeans with significant skills in the intelligence arena.
Well, on this capability, I think that's definitely going to be something that's going to work out well for those countries and I think be a boost for the alliance. So all this will come together. Once it is decided, we'll have more of that, of course, as the summit then finally concludes. Look, we'll close it there. Garvan Walshe, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to see you, and thanks for your insights tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be on.
Thank you for watching. That concludes this edition of World Talks, but stay tuned. Much more coming up right here on TVP World. Goodbye.